Hey guys, put some in 9:45 here. There we go. Okay. Um, hey guys, put some in 9:45. Welcome back to another video. Um, in this video, it is going to be me rambling a lot, like a fuck ton of rambling, because I just finished Arcane. Oh my god. It was such an incredible TV show. Um, so for a little bit of background context, um, I've never played League of Legends. Don't really want to. I don't know shit about it. But I was told that you can enjoy Arcane without knowing anything about League of Legends. That is definitely true. Um, and God, I don't even know where to start. Um, I will say this, I think the first season is better than the second season. Um, I think the first season is fucking peak television. Um, it has it introduces the world and the characters so well. Um, okay, God, I can't even separate like I gotta separate in terms of like individual aspects. Okay. I mentioned the world. I'm gonna start with that. Um, so the world of Piltover is extremely interesting. I think the world building in this show is fucking fantastic. I think it does just, just the thing. This is like my number one favorite thing that pieces of media with good world building do. And Arcane does this in fucking spades, and I love it. You are able to just be dropped into the world, and you don't need any explanation of the world other than the actual world itself. You don't need any like an entire history. You don't need any explanation as to how it got to that place. Um, you just are into it and you explore the world that you were dropped inside of. Obviously, there are exceptions to this, the biggest one being Lord of the Rings, because there was so much history to that one. But I think that that quality is, in general, for me, what makes really, really good world building. And fuck, Arcane does this in absolutely spades, and I love it. The world. Another thing I really like about the world building of Arcane is the world built over. This is what I would call using tropes effectively, because there are two main tropes that I noticed within the way the world is structured. There is rich, more elitist upper culture, and down in the dumps underground culture. And there is also a debate between science and magic. Um, which are fairly basic tropes by themselves, and also when they're combined. But um, I think the way that Arcane manages to explore its world to such a depth using those simple tropes is just nothing short of masterful, to be honest. Um, I love the world. It's so interesting. Next I'm gonna cover some of the more superficial things. This show has like some of the most insane, creative, and coolest looking animation I've ever seen. Um, it does this fascinating thing where it takes like 3D character models and and it's like animated in 3D, but then like all of the backgrounds, all of the like effect, all of the like flashes and lighting in a fight is all animated in 2D. It is such a unique style. I've never seen anything do. And like I've seen certain things like movies and shows that have been doing this like 2.5D style. It's a very popular style that I think Into the Spider-Verse was initially what popularized it. But this it like it takes it and like kind of makes it its own thing. It's like so unique and distinct in that way. And every single bit of the animation is so beautiful and aggressive and dynamic. I love it. It has genuinely some of my favorite animation of anything I've ever seen. Um, uh, which nice transition. The action and the fight scenes are absolutely incredible. Uh, so fucking cathartic to watch. It is like this perfect mix of slow mos and cuts and the lighting is adjusted perfectly in every action you do it is almost always extremely clear to find out what is going on and you never feel lost in an action scene which as a result further completes that plot point because it manages to be incredibly engaging the entire way through every action scene. Um, now, um, the biggest point next is obviously the characters. I think the characters is by far the strongest point of this whole damn show because it has such a brilliantly written cast of characters for the most part. There are one or two I don't like, and I'll get to those, but um, that are just masterfully written. Honestly, it's such a complete cast of characters, and I love it. Starting with Vi. Vi is an incredibly captivating main character. Um, she has a very like entertaining and likable personality throughout the entire thing, and I think that makes her extremely appealing. Also like just watching her go through like tragedy after tragedy and betrayal after betrayal because she can never like seem to make the right choices. It's just like it's this like endlessly discerning it and it just like it creates this like sadness within that makes her character so captivating because each time you want her to make the right choice. But this also isn't like an overdone thing to where it kind of feels like you're getting impatient for her to like make the right choice eventually. Um, so yeah, I love Vi. And then Jinx. Oh boy. Jinx is even more complicated of a character. Okay, sorry about that. My sister came home. I had to put the dog up and stuff like that. Um, so Jinx. Um, Jinx is definitely the most complicated character in the whole show. Um, her whole like personality, like things, and the guilt that she feels over that, it's just it's amazing. The the way that season one concludes with like her like having this whole confrontation and then like ending up killing Silco is crazy. And then like the way that she ends up like drastically changed because of Isha. And then like the way that she kind of like slowly regains her humanity by doing that. And then her sacrifice was just incredible. And um I love the sister relationship they have, and like there's so many ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs that it goes through. It's so good. Speaking of Soko, even though he's only in season one, my God, he is such a fucking fantastic top tier villain. Um, I think for me, Silco literally checks every single box in what makes a top tier villain for me. Um, he has a relatable motive. He is emotionally connected to a major character. He has a character development change that is related to another character. And yet, despite all those things, he manages to stay true to his principles. And five, he um his impact and legacy that's left shows how impactful he was as a character. Um he accomplishes all of those things. Um he has a very compelling motive with his connections to Vander in the past. Um, his fascinating relationship with Jinx is so multi-layered. There's a ton of depth to it. Um, and and in the way that that affects his actions is just great. And then like seeing in the beginning of season two, like the effects that his collapse had on the lanes was just amazing. Everything about Soko is fucking brilliant. He's such a incredible villain. Um, Now, speaking of Vander, Vander is a fantastic character. I loved him in the start. And then the whole twist about how he ended up being the beat, that was absolutely crazy. And I think the development that that led to with him like slowly being more humanized was great. In fact, I wish that had honestly been his full character arc. Um, a little bit of a negative. I do feel like there was a little bit of lost potential there, to be honest. Um, but overall, it's still very good. Um, I really liked Heimerdinger. I know he's not that much of a major character, but I thought he was really fun. Um, I love Echo. My God, Echo is the GOAT. Echo is such a clutch, like badass. He's like so cool. He comes in with everything at just the right moment. He's insanely hyped. I feel like he's the character above all else that you're really just rooting for. Um, Especially like when he wants to go back in time after being transported over the Hex Gate, um, and the Hex Core and all that stuff. Um, which I'll get to talking about that in a second, but yeah, he's just fucking awesome. I love him. Um, Victor is honestly probably my favorite character in the whole series. I think that the sheer amount of just insane development through so many different angles and themes that are explored through his character. Along with like using his character to develop the lore and explanation of Hextech and the way the Hex Core evolved is brilliant. And everything with him, there's so many little things that I can't even think of right now that honestly I think are just worth watching the show for yourself, just to experience all the glory of it. It's brilliant. And then the way that it ends with like that revelation of Jace's past, like revealing that he was that original sorcerer that Jace saw as a kid was just it was so wild, and it was like the actual perfect connecting point possible. Um, Speaking of Jace, Jace is like one of what Jace is probably my least favorite here. We go from my favorite to my least favorite. Um, I don't think Jace is bad in the beginning. I think that he's just kind of basic. I don't really like what happens to him in season 2. I'm not a fan of the way that that he was taken in terms of his writing by uh by, by like the way that he wanted to kill Victor and all that stuff. I, I wasn't a fan of his entire arc. It didn't feel like it went a whole lot of places. Um, Now Mel is a really strange character. Um, because her development is so slow, and yet it's pretty good, but it's definitely not nearly to the level of other characters, I would say. Um, I think I don't think she gets interesting at all until her mother is introduced. Um, and then she goes through some interesting development there, and then like that whole like mage thing happens, which I gotta admit I thought that was really cool. And overall, I'm left with the fact that her character was just decent to me. It's nothing like outstanding. The other character I didn't really like, speaking of, was why the fuck can I remember her name? Shit, dude. Oh my god. What in the hell is her name? Ambessa. I don't know how I forgot that name. Um, I, I wasn't a fan of Ambessa. I understand the point behind her character, and I think she has some really interesting like character ideas and like arcs that she goes through. But like, I feel like Ambessa takes up way too much screen time. I think that's the biggest issue. I think Ambessa just is too prominent, and it feels like at a lot of points she was really forced in there, but um, she's not. She has some good parts, but just too much. I think. Excuse me. Um, Caitlin was a very interesting character. I liked her like whole thing in season 1 about like elitist like pretty girl who like learns the toughness. I'm a big fan of that trope. It's very simple, but I like it a lot. Um, uh, uh, excuse me. Ugh, I am very sleepy. Which is why I'm trying to finish this video up kind of quickly. Um, uh, Um, Caitlin, and then like that whole thing happens. I love the way that they grow closer. Like I love her and Vi's romance. I think it's honestly fantastic. As far as romances go, I think the lesbian aspect is a very unique like flair, and I think it like it adds a positive to just like how good the romance is and their chemistry and whatnot. Um, I think uh the whole thing with Caitlin's mother dying, I think that's really good. Um, and then just kind of like seeing her like up and downs and just like how she has to kind of like grow by herself and she can't really like lean on anyone in particular to do it besides like herself and why she has to like oftentimes like find her own solutions to things, find her own way to do things, because like everyone that supposedly is trying to help her out doesn't really end up doing that very well. Like her mom wasn't that close to her. And Bessa ends up feeding her a bunch of poison in her ear and stuff like that. Um, so yeah. I quite liked her character, but my favorite thing about her character was definitely her romance with Vi. I think that whole thing had some fantastic chemistry. Um, Now, I will touch quickly. I mentioned that like in the very beginning that like I like season one better than season two, and I think season two is very very good. But I think the biggest issue with season two, and consequently my biggest issue with the entire show in general, is something that really takes me out is oh, I don't feel like it is properly enough explained, like what the connection between the evolution of the hex core and the arcane is, and like which one we're seeing, like what goes into what territory. I think that separation should have been a lot more clearer. Um, but that's honestly my biggest problem with the show. And to be honest, I would say like it was a much much bigger issue for me when there wasn't nearly as much explanation for what happened to Echo, Heimerdinger, Jace, and Mel. But then all of that does end up getting explained in, and it does so in very very well told fashion. So as a result, my the scope of that problem is diminished a lot more, but it's still a problem I have with the show, and it's probably my biggest problem with the show in general. So uh yeah. But overall, this probably cracks my top 20 shows of all time. I'm not completely sure yet because I need to make it like an updated list, most likely. But I fucking loved Arcane. I went into it literally as blind as fucking possible, and I think that's the best way to watch it if you're at all interested. Because like I said, I've never played League of Legends, nor do I want to. But this show is fucking incredible, and I implore everyone to go watch it because it is so damn good. That's gonna be all from me because I have to fucking go to sleep. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later. Good night.